Well, this is going to be, I don't know why I would say this, it may become the Virgo part of me and you,
Mm.
but I don't know what, I love this topic of
Oh,
the show tonight is one of my favorites.
me
And I
too.
was saying to Kelly earlier, but her and I are Virgos and we love research and I just love research. And my favorite thing are books.
Yeah,
I love bookstores. I love old bookstores.
me
I used
too.
to sign in I used to tell my publisher, I want to sign only independent stores. They said, no, you got to go to the chains. I'm like, ugh, but can you throw in some independent? Because I believe in independent
Yeah.
bookstores. And they're getting less and less and less because less people are reading books. So, but I love books. I love having books. I love being around books. I developed in a bookstore, Bodhi Tree Bookstore in Los Angeles. I used to go every weekend and read every topic you could name on the spirituality and
Mhm.
metaphysics and so forth. And you, Kelly, you love books as well. You've always loved books, yet and learning.
I am a bookaholic. I mean, I have these books behind me. That's nothing. I have books all over the side. I mean, I have another room of books. I have books in my basement because I don't have enough room. I love books. And when I had my spiritual awakening, I could not get enough books.
Yeah.
And that's what one of the things that you're having some beginning of a spiritual awakening is when you want to start reading really spiritual books.
And you become like a sponge. You want
A
to absorb it all.
sponge. I remember I would have no money, no place to live. It didn't matter. My mom would see me and I'd be carrying 5 or 10 books with me everywhere I went. You know,
Yes,
I
yes.
did not. I don't think I put that in my book, but it's true. I'm such a book person, and I'm so glad I have what I have. I love them.
I was just in, it was so funny. I was just in Fort Lauderdale and Sarasota, and I went first to Sarasota, and there was an old bookstore. I almost cried. And I went and I spent like 2 hours going through the old bookstore,
Oh,
everything from everything. And it was just, I
the
found some
best.
spiritual books there, some Civil War books there, just some great stuff. And just the history alone. And I love to hold a book and feel the book. I love to be in a room with the books. I love the knowledge. I love libraries. My favorite thing is a library. Get me to a library. I used to spend days in the library. I think it's the movie theater I used to go. You used to that too?
Totally, James. We're two peas in a pod here. Uh-huh. In fact, I have to tell you something. Speaking of small bookstores, well, you and I love the Bodhi Tree. We love
Yes.
the Bodhi Tree. But one day you were doing a book signing at a small bookstore in Pasadena. Do you remember that? The bookstore
Yes.
in Pasadena.
Yes, of course I do. Yes.
So and you
On
bought
Lake
me
Avenue, right on
one of
Lake
my
Avenue.
favorite books.
The
You
Quiet
said to me,
Mind.
"You don't have this book." I said, "No." He said, "You do now."
The Quiet
Remember
Mind.
that? Yep.
Yeah.
And
I
everybody
ordered a
was
lot of these and I
got to
give them out
have
to
this.
everybody.
Yeah. Well, I
It's a
kept
Bible.
mine.
Yeah, it's a little
Yes.
Bible. Every page you
Mhm.
open up. Quiet Mind. So tonight is going to be some, of course, we couldn't do all
Oh.
of them, but some of our favorite books of all time and different subjects.
Mhm.
And Kelly, you go first and tell us what you have in your
Well,
list.
my favorite book of
So
all
get out your pen
time.
and paper, everybody, because
Yeah,
you're going to want to write this down.
write these down. But my favorite book of all time, there is a story behind this one. And this book changed my life. If we talk about life changing books, this
Yep.
book changed my life. And this book was given to me by my dear friend Charlene 3 years before I had my head injury or any spiritual awakening. But this book, Talking to Heaven, is my all-time favorite book of all time because
Thank you.
I love this book so much, James. It meant so much to me when I read it. You wrote it in 97.
I wrote 97, and it was a quick story about that was I didn't want to do the book, and a friend of mine, Peter, who was in a development circle with me, said the spirit world is saying you have to write this book, you have to write this book, and I did write the book, and it was Louise Hay of Hay House Publishing.
Mhm.
She had a ghostwriter named Linda Thompson. And then somehow I got through, met Linda Thompson, and Linda helped me I wrote the book, but Linda helped me with grammar and syntax, and she's still working with us today. She's working with
Yeah,
your book right now.
she is. Yeah,
And she's just incredible. So
she's great.
Talking to Heaven was the publisher didn't believe in it. I went to several different publishers, no one wanted to buy it. It was like cold February. It was February. So I just helped Audrey Meadows pass over the night before. That's all the story. And I went to Red Eye to New York, and I was at a run down 6th Avenue to I think it was Simon and Schuster or something. And it was like freezing cold. No publisher wanted except Penguin Putnam went. And this girl, Danielle Perez, was the editor. And she goes, I like this. I said, there's two common things we have as humans. We share two common experiences. One is birth. We know a little bit about that. And the other is death. And we all want to know what happens. So this answers those questions. And she said, well, okay, I'll do it. And to make a long story short, and through many different types of scenarios, I ended up in the Larry King show. The publisher literally sent me to Chicago, my first book tour to Chicago. I did a radio show that Marianne Williamson did before me on a college campus. I went to the bookstore and there were no books. They sent me to a city with no books. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
What? So after Larry King, they had 6,000 copies. That Larry King was December 1997, I believe was the 7th. And that was Friday night. And they the book, the calls to CNN Bureau went from 6 o'clock that night to 3 o'clock in the Sunday afternoon around the world.
Wow.
Bureaus, and went from 6,000 to 600,000 within 2 months. And it was 26 weeks, #1 New York Times. And it was, they called it Miracle of Publishing. And that blew it out. And that opened up that whole space as far as life after death. Mediumship was the first medium ever on television ever to do Larry King. And it was pretty amazing. It was and everything. People Magazine, and it was just weird. I'd go to airports and at least press people would be there. And it was a wild time. But thank you. It's helped a lot of people. And I thank them for encouraging me to write that and give me the words. And yeah, that's great. It's a book everyone can relate to in a way too. It's
totally. So good. So thank you for writing it. God, thank you for listening. So what book do you come up with first?
Well, I have so many. It was hard to choose, but one of the books that I read when I was working in an office. And funny enough, I read this book, and every time I read a certain page, I turned and said, "This makes sense to me." And this is before I did anything mediumship wise.
Okay.
And I was working for Norman Lear, who was a producer for sitcoms, and I was doing
All in the Family.
Yep, All in the Family. And it was an organization called People for the American Way, and they were really going against Jerry Falwell and the religious right. They were trying to help balance that. So I put together a celebrity garage sale. Never did it before, but I had all these different addresses, and I had this person's address, and the book was, let me see where it is. Changed my life out on a limb.
Oh, Shirley MacLaine.
And I wrote her. I had her address from this list, and I wrote her and I said thank you, because every page I read, I was like, oh my God, this is it. And I never did this. I wrote to her and I said thank you for this book. It changed my life. It's changed me. It makes me think differently. Never think I can hear from her. And then Christmas Eve, about 3 weeks later, Christmas Eve, I get a card from her. I said thank you for your thoughts on my word, and happiness to you in your world. And now we're good friends. Now we're good friends after all that. But that really changed my life. That book opened me right up. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that book much. I loved it too. That's interesting. But how did that come after your book? Like a year later, 6 months later?
Before my book, way before my book.
It was before your book.
Oh yeah, much so.
So you wrote to her before you were published.
Oh yeah, this was in 90. This was in 86.
Oh God, I remember when it came out. In my mind, it was later.
97. So 9 years later, my book came out.
Wow, James. God.
Yeah, that's set in 7 years of development too. But it said something to me. It spoke to me.
Yeah.
And now we're good friends. I mean, we know each other very well. We spend a lot of holidays together, and it's just wild.
Wild. Okay, am I next?
Yep, you're next.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with. I have so many.
You're so funny. You have a white chair, like I have a white chair. I'm just saying.
Oh my God. I know.
Our office is exactly
okay. I'm going to go with this book, and I've got so many, but this one is one of my all-time favorites. It's called Holiday in Heaven. Holiday in Heaven. And it's a wonderful story by Aaron Aron Abramson. Holiday in Heaven. And the reason I love this book is this man was a medium who wrote it. He had a lot of out-of-body experiences. And it's where it takes you on the other side, and it goes to, the great library, the meaning of truth, all kinds of things. And it's written in such a beautiful way that I read it once a year. I read it, and I just love it. It makes me feel good when I read it.
You author, Kellee?
Aaron Aron Abramson, Abrahamsen, Abramson. And I found it at Bodhi Tree, James, and I just loved it. I know. It just means a lot to me, that book.
In that line, one of my favorite Bibles of all time is a book which Renee is going to put up, and it's called Life in the World Unseen by Anthony Borgia. It's a spiritual classic. And it's very much like that Holiday in Heaven, because it talks about, it was based upon a Monsignor who died, and he got to this other side, and he realized that all the work, all the information he was telling his parishioners about the other side in heaven was wrong. So he went through there it is, Life in the World Unseen, Anthony Borgia. Thanks, Renee. And it was, it's really channeled. It's all this information. Monsignor goes through a medium and talks about everything on the other side, what it looks like, what it feels like, the colors, the different spheres. It's phenomenal. And it did so well that they're more than Life in the World Unseen to Anthony Borgia. That's a good one. Classic. There's a classic spiritual book. You should have it in their library.
Okay, that one I'm going to put in mine because I don't have that one. Thank you. Okay,
oh, you don't have that one? You'd love that.
I don't. Okay, I have to name these now, James, because I love these books. The Spiritual Unfoldment by White Eagle.
It's on my list.
It's on your list too, and I've got Spiritual
1, 2,
Unfoldment.
and 3, yeah.
I have 1, 2, and 3, and then by White Eagle. And also, do you have this one, James? The Path of the Soul.
By White Eagle?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and Kelly. Do you have this one, Kelly?
Let me see.
The Best of White Eagle?
Wait a minute. I can do one better. I have guidance from Silver Birch.
Oh, Silver Birch is great. Yeah. So
Very
every Silver
good.
Birch book you can get. There are many Silver Birch books. You should get all of those Silver Birch
Yeah,
books, everybody.
They
Silver
should.
Birch in your spiritual library. No doubt.
And then I have these two also, which I love. Heal Thyself by White Eagle.
I love to have that.
And Beautiful Road Home.
I have
by
that
White
as
Eagle.
well. Yeah, spiritual.
Great books. So good. Okay. I had to get the White Eagles in there because I think they're just so terrific. Whoops. Oh.
I'm falling over on my white chair.
You fall over on your books.
So one of the books I first started reading in my development, which I thought was fantastic.
Jessica says we need a list of all the books. I would love to read them all. Thanks for sharing. Well,
Okay,
we can do that. We
We'll
can
put
do
that
that,
together,
Jessica.
for
It's
sure.
a good idea.
Oh, that's interesting. My goodness gracious. Oh, okay, I'll tell you later what I just found this book.
Thank
Kelly.
you, Carissa, for saying that.
You'll flip out. So this is a
Okay.
great book. It's called Key to Yourself. I got this at Bodhi Tree. Key to Yourself by Venice Bloodworth. Key to
I
Yourself.
don't know this. Okay.
Really good book. And it's he's a doctor, a therapist, there's psychology. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Reflect both the findings of modern psychology and the principles taught hundreds of years ago by Jesus of Nazareth. She referred to the subject matter of her teachings and writings as spiritual psychology and said that her goal was to help humanity by explaining to people that they can think themselves into actually being well, happy, prosperous, and beautiful.
Oh,
So when I first started doing this work, I got involved in Church of Religious Science and Ernest Holmes books, so anything with Ernest Holmes. So a lot of my start was really believing in myself, learning that you have thought, you have the power of thought, you can create your life with what you think. So that was one of the key books. Key to Yourself.
Wow.
Go on,
Okay.
Kelly.
Okay, and this is a staid book, but I love this book. Many Lives, Many Masters.
I picked Brian's book out as well. I thought you'd
Did
probably
you? Yeah, Dr. Brian Weiss, and I know you've known him for many
I've
years.
worked with Brian for like 20 years.
Mhm.
Yeah, been great man and great work.
Great
And
book.
the book is still up there in the top of the bestseller list of 25 years. It's good.
Yeah, it's a really, really good book.
Speaks truth.
Yes. Okay, you're up.
Okay, I'm up. So this is the one which was out of print for a long, long time. And it was a classic in the spiritualist movement. And Arthur Finley was a lovely man who was very, very big at, and he started the college, the college like studies back in England. This exciting book contains specific detailed evidence of life after death. Anyone skeptical of the idea should read this book because the author presents the most compelling evidence for it that you will ever find. The author was a well-respected man who wrote a massive scholarly 2,200-page book on world history called The Curse of Ignorance. It's really wonderful, and therefore knows how to conduct research on penetrating and revealing level. On the Edge of the Etheric is a book here.
Ooh.
Every page containing many true cases. So it's all about what happens when people pass over, the evidence in life after death. So really great.
Oh, that looks really interesting.
Really, really good book. Recommended for every serious researcher or open-minded skeptic.
Wow.
Scientifically explained. Yeah.
Wow.
Might be hard to get. It was out of print, so I'm not sure. I think you still get it now.
Wow. Okay, I have questions and answers by Manly P. Hall. We were just talking about him the other day. Do you have this one too?
I think I sent that to you.
Oh, did you send it to me?
I sent that to you.
Oh, I love it, James. I love it.
You remember I sent you a whole box of books?
Oh, yes, I do. I didn't know this was in it. Okay, you're right. You're right. And this is the fundamentals of esoteric scientists. So
I have one better.
Okay, do you? Because this is such a good book. It has so many answers, so many questions. It's just great.
And Manly P. Hall was a philosopher, in metaphysical and cosmology. The Secret Teaching of All Ages. He wrote 18 books by the time he was like 14 years old. He was widely regarded as a sage and teacher steeped in the wisdom of antiquity, was one of the leading esoteric scholars of the 20th century. In 1934, he founded the Philosophical Research Society in Los Angeles, which continues to publish Hall's many works. I met him. I was actually first moved to LA. I remember Los Feliz.
Of course, I went there, but I never got to meet him. Yes.
I got to meet him, and I went to 2 lectures with him. I got to meet him afterwards. Before I'd gotten more involved in this work, and then once he'd passed over, but I still would go. And eventually, when I was out doing my book, they called me. They wanted me to do a Sunday lecture, so I did. I actually went there and did an event, and I had to sit behind the stage in his personal library.
Oh, wow.
It was unbelievable. So
I
one of my, I
bet.
love any book by Manly Palmer Hall, but this is one of my favorites.
Whoa. The Lectures
Actually,
of
this is my
Ancient Philosophy.
favorite.
Wow. Whoa.
Companion to the Secret Teaching of All Ages.
Wow,
Yes,
James.
he was amazed. Look at his eyes. Look at his eyes.
Whoa. That is something else. He looks like he's in the light.
Manly Palmer Hall.
Whoa.
He channeled this. Look at this diagram. He channeled this to the other side. Look, he channeled that.
Oh my gosh. Father, power, mind, father. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing book.
Uh-huh.
Good one.
Gosh. That's something. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I have a great book. I want to talk about this book. This is Joan Didion, and I love Joan Didion, and she passed away recently. I don't know, not that long ago. The Year of Magical Thinking.
I never heard of it.
It's a great book for widows and widowers who have lost their spouse, because she was a really, really well-known writer and just an incredible writer. And her husband, when her husband died, she went through this magical phase of not believing it really happened, and what she goes through, the trauma, and then the recovery of it. It's really great if you're a widow or widower or know somebody. It's a great book for that. Year of Magical Thinking.
She met Manly Palmer Hall. Fantastic. Yes. It looks like Houdini in the back of that book. Yes, very true. There's also a couple things here. Something recommended to Kelly.
Okay.
You recommend David Kessler's Visions, Trips, and Crowded Rooms. Talk about grief.
Yeah.
David Kessler is a wonderful grief therapist.
Absolutely.
He's wonderful.
Yes. Love him.
Yeah. Let's see what else. People are recommending some books here, which is great. Let's see. Here's one.
This one. Okay.
Wrote The Quiet Mind. White Eagle wrote The Quiet Mind. Out on a Limb, yeah, amazing. Yes. Let's see. David Kessler, yes. Joan Didion's writing is exquisite. I'm loving this. It's like Christmas. Joan, what was her name? Joan
Didion.
Not the other one that our friend told us about. The Wizard of Oz lady. Joan Quigley, was it? Hold on, I might have it. I might have it. Hold on. I might have to get it. I think I do.
Oh, Anne Margaret, it's an omega signal. It's an omega behind this. It's called the Secret Doctrine or something chair, and it's the greatest chair ever. I just love it. Oh, well, I love this. Jeannie, she said, I read Year of Magical Thinking after my stepdaughter died. It was soothing. Right. Oh, thanks for saying that. Yes, Louise books are great, and you can heal your life. And I have that here somewhere. I have that here. You can heal your life. Here it is. It's a great book. You can heal your life. Great positive affirmations here on Louise Hay. If you don't have this book, this is a seminal book, everybody. Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. Great book.
Here it is.
While James is doing that, I'm going to put, James, do you know Care of the Soul by Thomas More?
Of course, it's a classic.
This is a classic book, Care of the Soul by Thomas More.
Classic.
So good. I mean, it's really reclaims the soul for psychotherapy in a deeply moving way. It's a classic book, everybody. You would love it. Thomas More, just great.
Another classic book, really classic book. Back,
Okay.
I got it for $2.50. So people didn't know what it was.
Okay.
And this was printed back in the 30s. Was it in London?
Okay.
I'm sorry, 59. Morris Barbadol, incredible medium. This is spiritualism.
Ooh.
Now it might be out of print, but you can look online. You can probably get something else. This is
Wow.
great book. It was a great medium. Okay, I have a story quickly.
Okay.
When my cousin Patricia, who taught me metaphysics when I was a kid, and she completed suicide when she was 48, and we were the closest of all 12 cousins, right? And it was so weird. I'm gonna cry. It's so weird here. Oh, and I hadn't seen her until I had a near-death experience, and she was the first person I saw 20 years later.
My gosh.
Okay, so when she died, she lived in upstate New York, near Rochester, New York, and myself, my sister, my mother went up on a train to see her, and she was cremated, and her sister said to me, she went to the bedroom, she says, anything of paths you want, please take it. You and her were very close. And there was a shelf of books, and I said, I'd like that. And I don't know, but I went to this book, and it's the very first book I ever read before Bodhi Tree on spiritualism. A World Beyond.
Oh, by Ruth Montgomery. I'll be darned. A World Beyond. So that's, I've got chills, James. It was your cousin's book.
About my cousin's book. I never knew anything about life after death, the world beyond. So I'm taking this, and the cover is off. And I'm reading this in the train on the way home. True story, okay? So the cover is off now. So I'm just going to be very careful because there's something here. I got to see where it is. It's a trippy story. Hold on. Maybe it's not 40. I don't ruin the book, but there's something here. Here it is. Hold on, it's kind of weird. I can't read. I can't find it now, but there are marks here. She has little marks in the book. There are different marks. She has little marks here.
Oh yes, yes.
And on one of the side pages, I swear to God, I thought it was 45, but it literally says, "Are you ready?"
Yeah.
I want this read at my funeral.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Read at my funeral.
Oh
Isn't that
my
weird?
gosh. Did that happen?
No, because the funeral never happened. What happened was years later, I bought a tombstone for her, and I went up there and repeated it. But they hear us.
Oh, yeah.
I have her book and do the work that I do and put her in my books.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the meditation, page 113.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
Dog, page 66.
Wow.
Prayer 71. She said 71. I'm sorry. Here it is. 71. She said. Isn't that trippy?
It's really trippy. And that's what she wanted at her funeral.
Yeah. She said, here she is, I'm the friend of my funeral. Those prayers are virtually important, and the Catholics have the right idea in their prayers to the dead, a custom which should be adopted by all faiths and creeds, and also by all those who still love those souls who have passed on to the next phase of life. We here pray as diligently as ever we did in the physical state, and because this established that attunement with our Creator, we feel it affects more immediately here than we did in the physical state. Sometimes the soul on this side is awakened only by intercessory prayer for those in the physical state. The Kennedy brothers are a striking example of the power of prayer. Such a tumultuous, spontaneous wave of prayers pounded forth when the president was slain. Same with Princess Diana. She came back and she talked about how, and many of them said, "I don't belong where I belong." Elvis said that. He didn't belong where he belonged, but because of the prayer of people, the thoughts pushed them up to the higher level.
Wow. Wow.
Beyond Ruth Montgomery, excellent book.
Wow. Susan Smith, could someone please repeat the author of Questions and Answers? Yes, Manly P. Hall. Excuse me.
Manly P. Hall. Manly Palmer Hall. And you should look up anything he does is great.
Everything he does. You're right. Absolutely right.
Well, any book with Edgar Casey is great.
James, what about this book? Do you know this book? Discovering Your Soul's Purpose.
Never heard of it.
Love this book by Mark Thurston.
No.
Oh, it's so good. Whoops. I've got all my pages on here. But it is so good. He was actively involved with Casey. Yes. And he goes into helping you figure out your specific mission in life. And it's just really great. It's creative. It's dynamic. It's a terrific book. I love this book. It's one of my that I keep around all the time. Oh, and James, let's not forget this one from you. The Game of Life.
It's again like The Quiet Mind. It's one of my favorites. I'm actually doing a course on it, and it's a Game of Life by Florence Shinn. And it's one of those ones I read when we first got started about science of mind. And it's all about how your thoughts create reality. So that's a great book. And then this is one, Kelly, from Joan Grant.
Oh,
Speaking from the Heart.
I don't know that one at all.
This is one that our friend from Wizard of Oz friend told us about.
Oh, okay.
She was an incredible medium. And it's really good for it's all about her past life in Egypt and how it's affecting the present life.
Wow.
Yeah. And she used to be a wonderful channel herself. Yep.
Wow.
Good book.
Interesting, that one. Okay, I have to show this one because this is I love this book. Wheels of Life. It's a book on chakras. Classic. People, it's classic book on, right? I mean,
is it Ledbetter?
No, it's Anodea Judith.
Because there's also one by Ledbetter, C.W. Ledbetter, which is like the one.
I have bet one of those two of his as well. He's written a lot of books.
A lot of books.
But she's really well known for, it's called Wheels of Life. Anodea Judith is her name. and for chakras. I think she used to teach classes in it too. She's really, really good for that. Okay, and somebody.
Dana Guadalupe, I love Echoes of the Soul from Echo Bodine. Yeah, Echo's a good friend of mine. She's a excellent writer in person and Virgo, by the way.
Oh gosh. Okay, and we've got to talk about Michael Newton, Wisdom of Souls.
Oh, it's Bibles,
and Journey of Souls.
I've used those as research for my books. The last 2 books I did.
Yes, yeah. I've used them too. And Destiny of Souls is the third one, which I have somewhere here.
And I'll be using that for that book for my cruise for some references.
Really?
Yeah, because we're going to go to a station before we come back to the Incarnation.
Okay.
One of those stations.
Good.
Reiki Beast is my favorite part about garage sales and states of finding amazing pajama books. Very true.
Oh, yeah. Huh. All right, James, you're up next.
Yes, Anne Margaret. Can you imagine? It'd be amazing. So this is a book that one of the first books I ever read. It's a great accumulation of all different types of authors, all the different, and it's really great. It's by Robert Walsh, MD, PhD. And it is one of the first books I read called The Seven Central Practices to Awaken the Heart and Mind, Essential Spirituality.
Oh, that looks great.
It's great.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Wow. I have a book here. If you're dealing with suicide or loss of suicide, Touched by Suicide. This I thought was such a good book. If you're
Who is that by,
that.
Kelly?
Michael Myers and Carla Fine, Touched by Suicide. And if you know somebody that really needs this book, or you may need this book, it's great. Really helped a lot of people.
Yeah, I did a Sally Jesse Raphael show once, and there was
a
lady
did.
There.
What was that like?
You really want to know?
You'll have to tell me off air.
Well, no, I can tell everybody. It's fine. I'm not no problem. I was it was a young man that was the show was on Life After Death, whatever. There was a client though, a person whose son completed suicide, and she wrote a book. And it was actually an excellent book about suicide. And her son is on the cover. And I'm sorry to remember the name of it, like Ben's Story or something. It was really, really great. But yeah, that was an interesting time. I was on stage and I did a reading for a couple who another son was on suicide. And their son hung himself in front yard in a tree. Awful. It was horrible, but the reading came through really well. And the funny thing, Kelly, you know more about this than I do because you lived in Beverly Hills, and I know you're around a lot of these people. But the celebrity thing, for me, I think that like a celebrity or somebody on TV, they're a certain way. Yeah. And did you ever have this? And when you meet them, they're completely different.
Completely different.
Completely different.
No, and then you know the whole story, and you're like, oh, oh.
Not to down Sally, but I was a big fan of Sally Jesse. Remember that show was on all the time.
Oh, it was huge. And I got to meet her, and we did that. And she was in the audience, and we did the readings. And the people were traumatized on stage. And the son came back, and she said, "Okay, everybody, goodbye. See ya." And she walks backstage. She walks off the stage. Walks out of the audience and back to her dressing room. And that was it.
And then said anything to these parents, and I'm like,
"Oh my God!"
So I went back to the dressing room. And I said, Sally, you need to finish up with the guests on your stage. They just went through a traumatic experience, please. And she went, huh? I said,
oh my gosh, good for you. Okay.
Thanks, Kelly. Thank you, everybody, for joining in.
Bye, everybody.
God bless you. Thanks, Renee.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now and Beyond, featuring spiritual medium and master teacher James Van Praagh and spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
That was great. Maybe we changed some lives.
And maybe opened up some minds.
Which way do I turn?
Right. I mean left.